We really need you folks to be.
Hey Dave, you can hear the officer behind me. We cannot stay here very long. He's only allowing us to do this live shot for our safety. He's asking us to get across the street. You can see that the buildings are in bad shape. You can see that the walls are missing, and up at the top you can see they are falling down. Parents and organizers say they are excited about how this all came together. And I want to give you a closer look at some additional damage. This is actually the Yale Street sign that was blown off. And I want you to look at this building. Chris and I are over here in another section of downtown. You have pieces of brick that have fallen from here, landed in the streets. But take a look at this truck. The tires are still flat, and the owner says this is going to be an expensive fix. When it comes to safety on the water, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. It's your speed and how close you are to the next boat. In the morning, the veterans and other members of the Cherokee Nation will hop on board a flight here at the Tulsa International Airport. And I am joined by Noble the Bald Eagle. We first told you about him going missing earlier today, but now he's back. This video shows the heavy rain. The lights go out, then this happens. It was an EF2 tornado. When it passed, it left this building in ruin, and Celia Daniel with a broken vertebrae, severe gashes and cuts.
My main thing right now is my neck.
Daniel filmed this video. She said she was focused on the intense rain. She didn't expect a tornado to touch down.
The next thing I know, something boom, hit me right in the back of my head, and we went flying.
She came to immediately checking on her son, all while being ushered into a back room. That's when she realized she was in bad shape.
Don't move, and they start putting pressure immediately right here on the spot.
Someone else noticed this gash on her forearm, then her fingers locked up. She felt relief when paramedics arrived, but her ordeal still wasn't over. With so much rubble, paramedics couldn't get to her or her son.
I know you're hurt. I'm hurt too. I'm sorry. We had to figure out a way to get out of this.
Using light peeking through the wall as a guide, they crawled out. As paramedics worked to stop the bleeding, the fear intensified.
I didn't think I was going to get through it. When they were sitting there putting pressure and stuff, and I felt my body getting weaker.
She's still in pain, but she and her son did make it out, alive. Months after the city of Tulsa erupted in protest following the death of Terrence Crutcher, the former police officer at the center of it, Betty Shelby, is telling her side of the story.
I'm feeling that his intent is to do me harm, and I keep thinking, don't do this. Please don't do this.
I sat down with Mark Lewis of We the People Oklahoma, an activist group in Tulsa.
He didn't have the opportunity to at least meet the jury. She made her decision.
Throughout Shelby's 60-minute segment, Lewis often shook his head, even more so when Shelby said Crutcher caused his own death.
How can he cause his own death? She was the person who shot. She mentioned in reference to he was at a zombie state, but all of a sudden he'd become fast.
Contrary to Lewis's take on the interview, Amanda Miller with LIMSA, a police advocacy group, had a different take.
Some people it's not going to make a difference at all. Other people, hearing her perspective and hearing what went through her mind, it might actually help them.
She says it may not necessarily change the public's perspective, but it highlighted something more important.
When an officer feels their life is in danger, they are forced to make a split-second decision. They don't get that hindsight to look back.
I believe that there were so many opportunities for Betty Shelby not to use lethal force.
Both agree the trial outcome won't be decided by everyone, only the jury.
My organization has said from the beginning that we are going to 100% go with what the verdict decides.
Two smiling high school graduates with their lives ahead of them is how you see Miranda Talley and Noel New in this picture. But that story changed suddenly.
I live every day knowing that that she can't be here, so I'm going to do this for her, and she's my biggest motivation that I've ever had.
Talley now can only go through life without her friend. New died when a truck hit them both and drove away. The driver and passenger in the truck were found guilty of the crime.
There is a sense of comfort knowing that I cannot run into them in public. I always had that fear.
She says the thought of seeing them or even reading about them on social media brought flashbacks of lying in a ditch in excruciating pain in the middle of the night with her best friend dying beside her.
She would just freak out. Her or her sisters even would freak out. Mom, don't go down this road, we can't.
In that spot now stands a makeshift memorial. For the last 2.5 years, she couldn't bring herself to go. But after the guilty verdict, she found that strength with her mother right beside her.
She showed me exactly, this is where I was. This is where Noelle was. The truck was right here.
Talley says the broken part of her heart can't be mended, and you never get over it. But you can breathe a sigh of relief and push on.
Feels like I'm free from all those chains that have been holding me back before.
And to honor Noelle New's life, her family started a scholarship in her memory. You can find out how to contribute on our News on 6 app. Reporting live on the scene on the story in Rogers County, Katiera Winfrey, News on 6. Faye, Alice, and Dink weigh a little under 2,000 pounds each. They are Suffolk Punch plow horses. Instead of tending to the fields, they tend to their owner, Lee the horse logger.
August 9th, 2006, my friends dumped me on the west side of the Rocky Mountains, and we started traveling. And the adventures began from there.
In 10 years, Lee and his horses, multiple have since retired, have traveled over 16,000 miles, all the while pulling a nearly 8,000-pound homemade wagon Lee calls home, taking breaks when they can.
This is what these guys are bred to do, and they like doing it.
Lee and his team are on the road all year, looking for logging work where they can find it. Before becoming a countrywide traveler, Lee and his horses were loggers in Montana, but he lost his job in 2006 when 70% of the timber industry crashed.
I have to have a job. I like driving horses. Don't need a whole lot of money, just enough money to keep them fed.
He says it's not always easy, but if you love it, you'll make it work.
We've made it. We've done a lot of little jobs. We've done firewood jobs, do whatever.